Good morning and welcome to another episode of our monthly marketing meetup. I'm so excited to be here along Tara. If you don't know Tara, you should know Tara. She is definitely a powerhouse in the real estate space. And so while we have this amazing moms in real estate community, Tara kind of has a sister community, which is women in real estate. And she always has something amazing that she's bringing to the industry. Most recently, this month is the annual Women's in Real Estate Summit, which is a virtual event that everybody should know about. So Tara is like a wealth of knowledge and she has multiple geniuses, and we're just excited to have her as our co-host on our monthly marketing meetup. And today, friend, we're going to be talking about branding, right?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited. I love talking about branding because I think that it's something that we don't think about until kind of we're in the messy middle and it's too late. And you're like, uh-oh, what do I need to do? And so I really I thought this would be a good way to like kind of kick off the new year, because right now is when you guys just rebranded, which looks beautiful, by the way, so fun and vibey. But I thought that, right now is a really good time because we kind of start to think about our branding refresh, our business refresh. So let's kick it off and talk about building your personal brand versus your real estate brand.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so important because I think one of the misconceptions that agents have that often stumble them up on really big decisions is around the brand, right? And one of the things that I know 23 plus years in is that people don't follow brokerages. They follow people, right? And I think that a lot of agents, sometimes they wonder, like, if I walk away from the big brand, if I walk away from, the signature, I was a Remax agent, if I walk away from the Remax and I go to this brand, is that going to impact my business? And ultimately, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is that while those brands obviously have, power behind them, your personal brand is what you should be building, right? And even when it comes to your own personal production business, like Faithful Living is my team and I'm obsessed with that brand and I love that brand. But I would say that 90% of my clients don't work with me because of Faithful Living. They work with me because of me and who I am and Randi Mendez as the personal brand, right?
100%. And I always laugh a little because I know we've all done this, right? I have done it multiple times as well. When you are getting ready to move brokerages and you're like, I have a big announcement. And it's like, nobody cares about that big announcement except for you. It's a purely self post, right? Because half the time your ideal client doesn't even know what brokerage you're with. They don't quite understand what exactly that means. So for them, they're like, all right. And then for agents, we are all kind of just like internally like rolling our eyes. And again, we've all done it. I know I've done that post a bazillion times, but it's purely selfish, right? Like, and so whenever I think of somebody that is like outwardly talking about their brokerage, I'm like, ooh, okay, hold on. Let's back up a little bit and let's think about longevity in our business, right? Because that's something that's always the core of everything that I do. Is I want to make sure that whatever business you're building, whether it be real estate or beyond, it is sustainable. And when you are building your business around real estate and only real estate, you're really tied to the service and the geography. Whereas when you're building a personal brand, it's more about your personality, it's more about your expertise, and it's more about your values. So I really like to encourage agents to start leaning into that personal brand side of things.
Yeah, 100%. Well, there's a saying that I love, and it's, let me see if I can remember it, but borrowed brand equity is not the same as owned influence, right? And I think that that's something that is really important to like think about, is like what are you tying yourself to, right? And I do think a lot of agents just tie themselves to that brokerage. So like when they're going to start with the personal brand, I mean, where do they even start, Tara? Like we probably got somebody's attention and they're like, oh, really? I've been like, pushing the brokerage, or I've been pushing this, or I've been pushing that. Like, I'm pushing my team name, or I'm pushing, that I'm this real estate agent. Like, how do they make that differentiator?
So easy, right? Because I've done both, by the way. I'm speaking from experience where I built this entire brand around real estate. And then I was like, I kind of want to move beyond just selling real estate. And I was like, now what do I do? So let's start really easy. Okay. Let's start with something that you're known for. Maybe
Mm.
you're somebody that loves Diet Coke and tacos. Okay. So small. It is so small. It is so minuscule. It means absolutely nothing. But when I was like, okay, I want to start like being known and having other conversations outside of just buying and selling, I was going to every taco spot in my area and I was rating tacos, which I know sounds so silly, but then I was the taco girl. So anytime somebody saw a taco shirt or a taco
Mhm.
taco place was
Yep.
open. They were messaging me. And I want to put this in a different perspective. We both know Stevie, who is
Yeah.
building a great brand called The Hive. And she has really turned her personal brand into like a more all-encompassing brand, very similar to you and Faithful Living, right? So
Right.
what she has done is she's done her little rebrand and she has a bee as like her icon. It's like the hive, the bee. And now I promise you, anytime I see a bee, I stop, I snap a picture, and I send it to her. It's the smallest little thing, right? But I'm not actually thinking of her as real estate. I'm thinking of her as somebody that likes bees. And all of
Right.
a sudden, I'm thinking of her beyond just transactions. So if you're like, where do I even start? That's an easy way to start. It's just a very low barrier entry. Maybe you have like Chelsea Pites is a really good example. She has all her fun little toys in the
Yeah.
background. She
Yeah.
collects all these like
It's so
fun
bright. Yep.
things, right? Really bright
Mhm.
and colorful. So it's like it makes you want to prompt conversation, right? Like, what is that toy in the background? Like, are you in your son's room? This is my question all the time. Like, are you in your son's room? And she's like, oh no, this is all my stuff. So it's just really finding something that is personality driven, that is you. That's the easiest way I would say to kind of dip your toes into the personal brand waters.
Yeah, I love that. I always tell my agents that your personal brand is what you're associated with when you're not in the room, right?
Yep.
So when you're not in the room, what are they going to associate you with? You're talking about your voice, your opinions, your lifestyle, your convictions, your story. You know what I mean? Like, funny thing, like I'm known for mud. Like people just like, because every time I pull up somewhere, there's just like mud falling off the car. And so it's like whenever people are like out in the mud or muddy properties, they're like, oh my gosh, this is like Randy's thing, right? So your personal brand is why people stay loyal, even when there are other options and possibly even more affordable or cheaper options, right? Like they're going to stay loyal because they know that personal brand and they relate to that personal brand.
100%. And that's not to say, like, just to clarify here, we're not saying not to talk about real estate, because at the end of the day, our goal is to get real estate clients, right? But I think that there's a difference between building authority around our expertise
Right.
versus pumping buyer and seller tips left and right, and that being your only brand pillar. So I really just want you to, again, it's all about creating that longevity. And you keep saying like the lifestyle, the values, that is such an important piece. And that's what helps you stand out amongst, let's be honest, thousands and thousands of agents in your market is,
Yeah.
that personal brand side of things.
Well, and that authenticity is actually your superpower, right? And so a lot of times I hear agents just have hesitation because maybe they're not great on camera, or they have personality quirks, or they have a dry sense of humor, or maybe they have a dark sense of humor, or whatever it is. And I see people shy away from that all the time, and that's actually not what you want to shy away from. That's what you want to lean into, because, like I said, that people want to work with people that they know. And so one of the things that you can think about is putting your personality out there. The 3 P's, I just wrote it down yesterday, but it was like passion, person. I'll have to wait. I actually think I might have texted to Jordy, to my daughter, because I was on a call and there was an agent on there talking about how she had been building her personal brand. And she said, her goal every day is to share her 3 Ps. So profession. So she does talk about her profession, her personality, and her passion. And I just thought, I really like that. That's really good. And one of the other things that I always tell agents is what you want to remember is you're building that personal brand, right? And that's a huge part of who you are personally. And then what you have is a professional promise. And your professional promise is actually how you serve your clients, right? That's your systems, your experience, your process, your market expertise, your professionalism. And that's where you dial in, that solution to how you service that one avatar, right? Like ideally you're speaking to one avatar, even though we all know every agent wants to take care of everybody. We all know that. But the more clear that you can be a solution in that professional promise, and you can answer like that one line that you do, like I help families escape the suburbs, right? That really helps. Like now you know who I am as a person. You either love me or hate me. 1 or 2 scrolls on my social and you're either in or out. And then like, oh wait, she helps people escape the suburbs. So now it becomes very clear. Like I like her, and yes, she can solve my problem, or no, she can't solve my problem, right?
Yes. My favorite analogy, and you tapped into it a little bit, is my husband plays RPGs, which is, I just found out, is role-playing games. Okay. And they are
really?
video.
I didn't even know that thing.
Do you know about this?
No, I never even heard of it.
All right, let me tell you. So if you are a video gamer, you're going to resonate with this. But if not, I'm going to explain it to you because I am not by any means a gamer. So he buys these games, and these games are massive. We're not talking about like Mario level games where there's like, 10 levels and you call it a day, right? Like these are huge games that people spend years and years perfecting, right? So he gets so geeked when a new one comes out. And I never understood it because the first, I don't know, month, he is standing there with like this person or this being, and he is like changing the hair color. He's changing the accessories. If they have a beard or a mustache, what color their hair is, what they're wearing, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he spends literally hours doing this. And I was like, what is going on? Like 1 minute it'll have like a backpack. The next minute it'll have like a sword. And he goes, listen, he's like, I'm basically building up my character to be exactly how I want it. So maybe it'll be somebody that's really good, like a really good swords person. I don't know what the word is for that. Maybe it's somebody that's an alchemist or somebody that's really good with magics and potions, or they're a really good problem solver. You can create all these things with this character. And then this is where it gets good. How you create that character affects the game, affects how you go through the game, right? And he's like, if I build my character just right, I can get through the game faster. And it like was a light bulb moment of like, if you spend the time figuring out who you are and who your ideal client is, what that person looks like your perfect ideal person, your transactions are going to be so much easier, more fun. Yeah. You're going to get there quicker. You're going to be taking the paths of least resistance left and right, as opposed to if you think about somebody that is just not your ideal person, which we've all had them, the person that, you feel like in every direction, they want to do the opposite of what you want them to do. It just feels like it's more draining and soul sucking. And you're like, I never want to do this again. Right. And again, that's not to say that you aren't going to work with a variety of types of people. But when you have that one avatar, that one person that you can, hope and model after, I now know that when I am marketing to this avatar, what they like, what their pain points are, what their ideal location is, where they like to shop, what kind of food they like to eat, their lifestyle. And it makes everything really easy. And here's the biggest trick. Here's the biggest tip. I noticed that when my husband is building his RPGs, they kind of look a little like him, right? Like I'm like, okay, even though he's green and he has a mohawk and my husband is definitely not green and he has long hair, I'm like, he kind of looks a little like you. So a lot of times your ideal client is somebody that mirrors some of the things that you love, right? So just kind of something to think about. And I definitely encourage you as you're building out your personal brand to think about who that ideal client is, because I think that's going to help you start building that out.
Yeah, 1000%. So, I mean, you said something so powerful there, which essentially is that content it converts when trust already exists, right? And it's by showing up and being who you are personally and like having that connection point. Maybe it is the Diet Coke. Like I'm not a Diet Coke drinker, but I do understand the crispness of like the perfect crispness of a soda, right? And so like that's a connection point. And so the more connection points you have, there's just like this invisible trust that becomes built. And then all of a sudden, you know, there's conversion, which means conversations and movement forward in the relationship when that trust exists. And one thing else that you said is like, you know, like he's really getting into this. He's like, you know, it's something that he's actually doing. And it makes me think about something else that I've seen agents do. So I've seen agents attempt to copy top producers or agents that have a business that they think, oh, I'd like to have that business, right? So maybe it's, you know, an agent copying, you know, luxury without that authority, or it's an agent copying, you know, reels without the same conviction. And so, you know, I'll often see agents try to do the same thing and they're like, well, it's just not working. Well, it's because it's not your lived experience, right? So borrowing somebody else's authority will never build, you know, somebody else's voice will never build your authority. And that's something that you have to remember. Like, again, you got to spend some time, exactly like Tara just said, how her husband's spending all this time building this character. You have to build some time thinking about who is the person that I love to serve? Why do I love to serve them? You know, and the more time that you spend on that, like the more conviction that comes. We joke on my team because like the numbers all day long. Like we've all talked about this. If I just up my price point, you know, $100,000 a year, or if I, you know, go into luxury, we can do less houses and we can do less houses and sell less and make more and all these things, right? Well, it doesn't work for me because like that just, I mean, don't get me wrong, luxury is amazing, but it's not what excites me, right? Like getting into wide open spaces where it's just like you see nothing but land for miles and miles, and like there's just mud, and there's just like, and you drive through these little towns and you just wonder like how they even ever came to exist, and the post office is like barely standing. Like there's something that happens inside of me. And so it's funny because we laugh because they're like, oh great, Randy's taking another 3-hour listing away, you know, another 40-acre parcel 3 hours away for 20 grand, and we laugh about it. But the reason that I can serve those people really well, and of course I serve other people, but the reason is the conviction, right? The conviction and the actual excitement, and that I'm going to sell that differently because I feel differently about that parcel in the middle of nowhere. I feel the excitement for it. For me, it's not a parcel in the middle of nowhere. It's freedom. It's like, I mean, it's everything I want. And so that's the thing that you have to do. Like that's what Tara's talking about, is you have to spend that time being so intentional up front so that you deliver that conviction and those lived experiences. Tara, have you ever heard when new agents are going to a market and they're like freaked out? They're like, I'm going to move there. I don't know anybody. And they're like totally panicked. I even have an agent on my team that's called me a couple of weeks ago and it's like, I want to move. I'm done with the snow. I don't want to live in Indiana anymore. I want to move to Florida. And she's like, but like, how do I even do that? And I'm like, sister, I don't know a better recipe for success in real estate than moving to a new space. Because when we talk about lived experiences, you get to become the avatar of like, where should I go for coffee? Where should I do this? Where should I do that? And if you just share that, right? Like, I mean, have you seen agents that do that?
100%. And in fact, that's how I got my start here in Charleston, because of the fact that I didn't know anybody. I didn't have family. I didn't have sphere. I had real estate experience, obviously, because I was, in real estate up north. However, I came down here and I was like, I know nothing. I knew nothing about the area. So I got to play tourist. I got to go to all the spaces. I took my little camera. I was recording everything. And then I got to let my audience be the expert, like, which was really fun because I was like, guys, listen, I am looking for an Italian place. I know that somebody here knows a good Italian place. Give me your recommendations. And then what happened? I got a ton of comments that were like, okay, tell me what people are saying. Where's the good Italian places?
Everybody wanted it on
the ride. And the other thing is, especially relocation, you think about it, and where I'm at, I'm very fortunate that it is actually a very touristy city anyway. So people are always like looking things up and trying to figure out what there is to do. But when you have somebody that is, again, that lived experience of been there and done that, it makes it so much easier to connect with them. I mean, there's something to be said from people, that are like, I totally respect people that are like, I'm born and bred here. Like, this is my, I will always love this area. I'm gonna, born and die and all the things here. And that's amazing. But there's also something to be said of somebody who is from up north that has moved down south and is now like, listen, I know that the hurricane thing can be a little scary. Here are the tips that I learned along the way, right? That was actually one of my biggest things was like, guess what? Here's a hurricane checklist. And it's not your regular checklist because as a girl that comes from a lot of snow, there's a lot of things that they don't tell you about that you need to know. So it really is a superpower. It's a good little, niche. So don't be afraid to move markets, and when you build a personal brand, it makes it that much easier to pick up and go. Yeah. I will say that too. If you have a brand that is built around your brokerage and you're trying to move, I know that we've all made this mistake too, where we're using the email, we're using the CRM, we're leaning into their graphics, we're doing, and then we go to move and we're like, oh, this is going to be tough, So when you build a self-sustaining business, because essentially that's what it is. It's your own business. Your personal brand is your own business. And then you just lean into the brokerage for the support that you need. It makes moving brokerages, moving states, moving markets so much easier.
1000%. I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things to just always think about to help yourself to make this more digestible is your personal brand opens doors, right? Your personal brand is going to get you into rooms that you didn't even know existed. And then your real estate brand is going to be what closes the deals, right? So just start thinking about that. Like, that's why you have to be clear on both brands. And you have to remember that another thing you cannot do is you can't be neutral. Like, you have to have opinions on things. Like, people want trusted advisors, just like Tara just said. I can't tell you how many times I've thought about like moving to the South, or I've thought about moving to the Midwest. And honestly, like the thought of tornadoes terrify me. And I've talked to agents in like DMs, and like maybe it would never come to fruition, but it's been funny to me because I'm like, oh no, sister, like, no, I do not want to be anywhere that there's tornado warnings. And they'll say like, oh, it's not that bad or something. But if somebody would have ever been like, actually, like, let me drop this information in for you so that you actually know like the probability or the thoughts, or, what I mean? Like how you said you had like the hurricane thing or whatever, like that could have changed the game for me. And so I absolutely love that. So have opinions on things, have resources on things, but also just remember that you can be visible and still invisible if you stand for nothing. And so that's the other thing that I see agents they want to be very neutral and appeal to everybody. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you can do content over and over and over, and you will literally just feel like you're on a hamster wheel, never making traction. You have to stand for certain things. And so that's why getting clear on all of this is so important.
Yeah. And, you had kind of said something earlier, and it made me think like of my own experience and how there's a lot of shoulds in real estate. You should do this. You need to do this. You should look this way. And I think that when we get into real estate, so I'm kind of more specifically talking to newer agents right now who may be feeling a little unsure of things. When you get into real estate, immediately you're looking who's successful and how can I model myself after that. And that's not always inherently a bad thing, but where it becomes a bad thing is when you are taking all of these shoulds. You should dress this way. You should drive this car. So funny story, when I first got into real estate, there was a specific brokerage that I wanted to be aligned with. It was a local brokerage, but I just loved the people. I felt like I would belong there. It just felt good to me until I met the broker. I went and I interviewed, and we're talking, and I'm asking him questions, and I feel like I'm slam dunk. I'm like, I got this. Like, I'm so confident, right? And then he looked at me and he said, what kind of car do you drive? Now, I'm still a baby agent, right? And I'm feeling a little insecure, right? And at the time I had like a Pontiac Ultima. I don't remember. It was a Pontiac, right? Like, I have a Pontiac. He literally, I promise you, this is exactly what he did. He goes, well, at least if you keep it clean, and I was like, oh, so I left, went, told my husband I needed a new car. I was like, in order to be,
oh my goodness,
I need a new car. And I think that that's a common feeling that we have when we're baby agents, right? When we're newer in this industry, we start feeling like I need to start conforming to what other people who are successful are doing. But you know what you find out when you actually become successful is that like none of that matters. Like
Right.
I literally show up in my Lululemon, I show up in my leggings, and I love, I do love my designer bags, but also I love slopping around and wearing my hair in a top knot. And it doesn't mean any
I feel seen today. I am playing with my hair. I'm like, maybe I should have not just thrown it up.
like you said, you love your muddy trucks and land, and that does not make you any less successful. But if you keep listening to the shoulds of you should dress this way, you should look this way, you should drive this car, you should run your business like this, you're going to hate your business. You're going to hate it. You're absolutely going to be miserable. So my encouragement, if you take nothing else away, is instead of listening to all those shoulds, this is how you should run a real estate business. Think about how you would want to run an aligned business, which I know a lot of us talk about, of like running a business that feels good to you. And it literally looks different from every perspective. And that's what makes real estate a beautiful thing.
Oh, so good. I mean, I couldn't agree more. 100% how I feel about alignment. I think alignment is like the key to everything. And I think also then when you align with the right people, then you have the right voices and your should haves look different, right? They actually are honoring to what you're trying to build. And I think one other thing too that we can wrap up on too, I had an agent recently reach out to me and they had like an impressive content schedule. But it was like a full-time job. And so they were like, I'm going to have like 5 stories a day. I'm going to post 3 times a day and all these different things. And my advice to her was, you don't need to post more. You need to be more clear. And so I would also encourage you to make sure that you're being very clear. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. Right. And so your future clients are watching not just like what you're doing. Right. So I always talk about perception being reality. So no matter where you are in your business, if you're out there doing the work, like show behind the scenes. If you're out there just like, touring because you want to, show that. But not only, does it, is perception reality, but they're watching how you think and not just what you sell. So they want to see like, instead of trying to do all of this perfect curated posting, like show up in the authentic moments. Like, hey, today, this is how I wrestled with this deal. This is how I wrestled with trying to do this transaction. Or, here's what I think about this certain thing. Like even the Super Bowl, we all know that was like a huge topic, right? I didn't have the bandwidth or the mental capacity to like debate it. I'm not in that season. I don't want to have that. But you know what? I wanted to say something, right? And the bottom line was what I wanted to say is I found good in both of them. I found a good in both different performances. And ultimately my win wasn't anything to do on a screen. It was what I was hosting in my house. And so many people like that don't even engage. And this is the other thing too, is when you're building a brand, you have to remember not to watch the vanity metrics and actually watch the engagement. Like I had a lot of direct messages that didn't even engage with my post that were like, I felt that, like I'm exhausted too. And why does everything feel like it has to be either or? Because I think Tara, you even related to like the line I said that 2 things can be true at once, right? And so it's like, that was even a connection point for me and Tara. It was like, Tara felt that like 2 things could be true at once. And that's a perfect example of like, she related to my thought process. It wasn't about like the post. I think I literally just like took like 2 seconds of like my living room. And that was like the B-roll. It was my actual living room. It wasn't something that took me more than 5 minutes to put together, but it was relatable. And so I think that is so important that you remember your clients are watching how you think. So if you're never putting any of your thought process or your thoughts out there, then that's going to be really hard to translate to the authority that converts to trust, right?
Yeah, 100%. And just on that topic, just because things can be very polarizing, I always like to mention I have a post on my website that is how to deal with political, social, and traumatic events as a business owner. And it is not telling you one way or the other how to do things, but it gives you some thinking points on how maybe you're going to want to navigate those. as a personal brand or as a brand and as a business owner. So if that's something that you're struggling of like, I don't know what to say or how far to go or what, go check out that post, because I think that a lot of agents have found it really helpful. Because like you said, I mean, it doesn't always have to be anything that is incredibly polarizing or opinionated. It was more of just, this is how I feel. And that resonated, I'm sure, with many, many people. I love that post, by the way. That was a great post.
Oh, thanks, friend. It was and again, I just like the takeaway I want you to have is it was like I was wrapping up Super Bowl and it was like, oh, like I had a great night. Like it was a quick 2-minute thing. And like, I just like, oh, look, here's a video of my fireplace. Like it wasn't anything great, you know what I mean? And so that's what I really hope that you guys start to realize is this doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be overly curated. It doesn't have to be dialed in, but what it does have to be is it has to be authentic, and you have to be very clear on two things. Who is your personal brand? And then what is your real estate brand? And just remember that like the real estate, like I said, is the real estate arm is going to be what closes the deals. But every door that opens for you, every opportunity, every conversation, every relationship, everything that you get to steward, that's going to be opened through the personal brand door.
Yeah. And there's two different things here. There's, what is it? Is it like the psychology of selling or something like that they talk about? There's like the emotional trust and then there's logical trust. And some people, some buyers are all about the logical. When I make a big purchase, I'm very logical about what I do.
Right.
There's not a lot of emotion involved. However, there are some people that are purely emotion driven. So when you're thinking about your brands, both brands, your real estate and your personal, think about it in the way of like, your personal brand is going to help your emotional buyers, where your real estate brand is going to help those logical buyers. So if you can kind of find a way to melt both of those together, you're going to be in a really good sweet spot. And the other thing that I like to always say is that, listen, if you want to sell for the rest of your life, that's amazing. But so many of us go into real estate with an entrepreneurial spirit, and we want to expand beyond just buying and selling real estate. And it makes it so much easier to make that shift to other avenues, whether it be within the real estate industry or even beyond the real estate industry, to bring in other revenue streams when you have that personal brand. So that was something that I just definitely wanted to mention for those of you who may be feeling like, I love real estate, but maybe I have other ideas or other avenues that I want to take in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we won't do a shameless plug, but there's a reason we're at Real together, right? Because we want to build that additional arm, and even in that business, when people ask me how agent attraction works, I mean, it's the same exact thing, right? People align with me because of my personal brand. We connect on a person. They're not joining me. That Real is the brokerage, right? And so again, that's a perfect example. I probably don't even do a very good job associating myself with Real the way that I should. But Real is the brokerage that obviously offers, but the conversation starts through my personal brand. And then the vehicle is the company that makes sense for them, right? So I love that. And I love that you have like a perfectly packaged little takeaway that they can do to have some time and some thought and before like going out and discussing some of these topics. For me, I firmly believe that your brand should repel the wrong people. I firmly believe that. And it took me a really long time to get there. Don't think by any means that I started as like this person that was just okay with being disliked. I was not. Like, God, Jesus did a lot of work in me. And when I finally realized that he wasn't liked by everyone, I realized, okay, it's not going to happen for you, Randi. But when I got comfortable with that, what it did is it unlocked a level of success in my business that I never imagined. And I'm not just talking, a dollar amount of success. I'm talking a business that absolutely lights me on fire. And that, like Tara said, is aligned with who I am and what I do. And, it's very, very rare that I'm like not excited or stoked. Tara, when I had scaled up really big, and we'll kind of wrap here for the sake of time, but when I had scaled up big years ago, and I was very much building a business, a little bit less authentic and more, like the traditional ladder, like just following the process, doing the things, converting the clients, serving everybody, staying neutral. Make no mistake, I scaled and we were having really big success. And at the time I even had like a I even had like a showing assistant. And I mean, I went like 2 or 3 years without even showing houses because I had scaled and I had different people. And that's great. And if the model works for you. But it was like, I had no desire to be out there. I had no, like, it was very much, an assembly line. Like, I talked to you, I had the conversation, I sent you out with somebody to, and it's so funny because I look at my business now and at any point, if one of my clients call me and they're like, I want to see a house, I'm like stoked. Like last night I was like, okay, let's go. And Jordy's like, is that really what you're wearing? And I like had my socks and my slides and my leggings. And I'm like, this is absolutely what I'm wearing. And I'm in the house. And then they were like, oh my gosh, I almost wore that same thing. And I was like, yes. And it's just so funny because it's just such a different experience with like how it is. And again, I'm honored to serve everybody, but there's such a different experience because I leaned into that thought of, my brand should repel the wrong people. And so today, what that looks like for me is 95% of the people I get to serve, we are so connected. We've already established our points of connection. We've established our mutual things that we love. Like we love our fuzzy socks with our slides on cold days. We love being comfy. We love all the things. So the experience for them and me is so great. And I want to end on this note. If you're thinking about all of this with just yourself, like, well, how am I going to feel? What if I put myself out there? What if people don't like me? What if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? You're missing the mark. You need to start realizing that by not putting yourself out there, you're doing a disservice to somebody who would absolutely be better served by you. And I'm a firm believer that everybody has somebody that's better served. Like that. That's why I have an abundant mindset. I'm not meant to serve everybody. I'm not the person that you want serving. Like if you love luxury and you love all those beautiful things and you love getting dressed up and you love heels, like you're going to not have a fun experience with me. So start getting excited about the fact that honestly, somebody out there needs you. And as you start putting yourself out there, they're going to get to find you and you're going to get to create that experience for them and facilitate that sell for them that you wouldn't have got to otherwise.
Yeah. And there's a freedom in that. There's a whole nother level of freedom that unlocks when you do exactly what you just said. When you get comfortable saying, no, that's not right for me, which again is not what we're taught. You should take every opportunity. You should say yes to every lead that comes in, right? Those are the shoulds. But when you get comfortable saying no, or maybe that's not right, that's not aligned, there's like a whole nother level of freedom that unlocks for your business. So.
Well, I love this, and I always get excited talking to you. I feel like Tara and I could just talk all day long, and she's going to have some exciting things coming. In fact, I'm excited. We kind of alluded to some of the stuff Tara is going to be doing this year, but she has some very clear visions this year, and she's going to continue to join me once a month. So we're the first or the second Tuesday of the month. So every month, the second Tuesday of the month, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you block your calendars. And if there's something specific you want us to dive into, let us know because we would love to do that for you. And of course, you can always reach out to myself or Tara. But thanks for joining us today, ladies.
Yay, bye, guys.
Thanks, friend. Bye, friend.
Bye.